John Feldt here. Welcome to the weekly water outlook for August 24th, 2014. Well, let's take a look at the past 30-day standardized precipitation index. And this is an index, sort of a calculation of what areas have received surplus rainfall or deficits of rainfall. And areas in yellow and red are deficits, and areas in green and purple are surpluses. And really, there's not a real strong pattern here as of late summer, but I do think we have over the southeast U.S., especially Alabama, Mississippi, and Georgia, parts of northern Florida, increasing deficits, and also continuing deficits in parts of Texas. We've had a monsoonal flow over the southwest U.S., and you can see that there are some enhancements in blue and purple of precipitation in that region. And then also from an agricultural perspective, this area right here really could use some additional rain. Just south of there, it's been actually very significant, but there's a very tight gradient in here. And you can see that lots of times in summer, these gradients. As far as the number of rain days in the last 7 days, ending August 22nd, areas in green and blue are areas that have received enhanced precipitation days, more days of rain than not, areas in brown, dry. And I'll show this in a couple ways, but this is really right here. Look at this this arc right here, and this is what we call the sort of the ring of fire. And what we have is an upper area of high pressure, and it really keeps it quiet here. Look at the brown, no rain days hardly at all. And then right along the axis, that upper jet stream axis, that's where we get the action, the convection, and that's very typical of a summertime pattern. Often it's actually further north, and there was some in this area as well. So we see that on the northern boundary of the jet stream. So if we look at the tropical weather outlook, I wanted to mention that we do have a tropical storm out there, Tropical Storm Cristobal, and you can see that's about it. If we look out further in the Atlantic Basin, you see very little activity. Off the African coast, nothing at all. And then you see a couple areas of thunderstorms in the Gulf of Mexico, but that's pretty much it. Here's a close-up here. You can see really nothing in the main development region out here off of Africa. Here's the tropical system, tropical storm, and then just some unorganized convection in the Gulf of Mexico that's very isolated. Now, in last week's briefing, I mentioned that we had a very extensive dust layer, Saharan analysis of dust, and that was inhibiting activity. But right now, it looks like it's really diminished. So I don't think as we look over the next week or so that the extensive dust will be that much of an inhibiting factor. So that might keep things going in that area. Now, I don't see anything at all right now, but at least that's one factor that won't be contributing. So here's your steering flow. Here's Cristobal right here. And we have this area of anticyclonic or high pressure flow, and that's sort of blocking the east coast. So this system is forecast to move right in this region right here and up to the north. And there's a pretty good consistency with models. Here's an ensemble of models. And you can see that all these models are now forecasting this to move either north or northeast. As a matter of fact, over the last couple of days, one of the things when we're looking at these models from one model run to another, we want a consistency or a trend, and the trend has been steering it more to the right. So that's giving us confidence that it's going to stay off the east coast. So the Hurricane Center's forecast right here does that. It moves it north, northwest for a while, and then it abruptly shifts it off to the east. I guess the question is if would be any precipitation brushing the southeast U.S., and I looked at a lot of models, and it really doesn't show that. Okay, so the precipitation over the last 7 days across the nation, you can very clearly see the impacts of that high pressure here, which has really shut off precipitation underneath the high pressure, hot and dry in that region. And then here's that ring of fire. Look at that. You can see it so clearly here, this pattern here of precipitation, enhanced precipitation, and that's going along the outside, the northern edge of that jet stream right there. As far as the percent of normal precipitation over the last 7 days, 25% or less of normal over the area shaded in red, and then we have 2 to 3 times normal in that region. And again, look at this here. Under the high, very tight gradient. Under the high pressure here, 25% of normal. Just north of it, 2 to 3 times normal. As far as rivers go, blue is indicative of rivers running above normal. This is a 7-day average stream flow from the USGS. Brown is indicating below normal stream flow, and green is normal stream flow. And typically, as we get in the summer months, we do see some scattered areas here. But one of the things because we don't have a system drought condition like we've had the last 2 or 3 years during summertime, we don't see quite the extensive below normal stream flow that we have the last couple summers. Now we do see it over the western U.S. where we've had lots of issues with fires and incredibly dry conditions, but over the rest of the nation, the eastern half, eastern 2/3 of the nation, a little bit more scattered this year than we saw in past years. And actually the jet energy, which has been north, remember we've had this pattern sort of like this, ridge in the north and a dip in the east. That dip in the east has contributed to keeping stream flow actually above normal over much of that area. So here's the jet stream this week. We've been alternating back and forth between this pattern. Much of the summer it's been a ridge in the west and a dip in the east, and we've really reversed that. We've pushed this ridge up in the east over the last couple of weeks, really warmed things up. And so this week. It looks like that's going to generally begin to transition. And then next week we get more of a straight or relaxed flow from west to east. And that's very typical of this time of year. And that's also a very quiet pattern over large parts of the nation, except the northern U.S. where it can be active with that jet stream energy. So here's your rainfall forecast over the next 7 days. Generally, with the exception of this enhanced precipitation right in here, and we have very high precipitable water. We have a frontal system moving through early in the period, and it's going to enhance the precipitation in this region. But other than that, it looks fairly quiet. Large parts of the country, very quiet weather, and it looks like it's going to be a quiet week with the exception of that very isolated area in the central part of the nation. So here are your anomalies of precipitation. Yellow or below normal anomalies of precipitation for the week. Green or above normal precipitation anomalies for the week. And if we look at week 2, even though there are some shades of green and yellow, these are not real strong signals, but it does look like it's going to continue that pattern of generally a little bit above normal precipitation over the upper Midwest into the Ohio Valley, and then a little bit below normal precipitation over areas south of there from Texas across the southeast U.S. As far as temperatures go, here's your next system pushing in, blue or below normal anomalies. This is at high heat and humidity. This starts to push off to the east. It's going to moderate this hot and humid conditions. And then you see with that jet stream aligning from west to east, we basically have a sort of a bland, near normal temperature pattern as we round out August and go into September. So here are your takeaway points from today's briefing. Tropical storm Cristobal will remain well to the east. There could be some outer bands and some tropical moisture along the immediate coast. The central Midwest region will see some action centered over Iowa, otherwise late August, generally quiet weather. And let's keep an eye on the tropics. We are nearing the peak of hurricane season over the next 3 to 4 weeks. Let's keep an eye on the Gulf of Mexico, that area of unsettled thunderstorms. Right now it's not doing anything, but let's just keep an eye on it because this is the time of year things can spin up fairly quick, and we need to keep an eye on it. If you ever have any questions, that's my email. You know how to reach me, and I hope you all have a great week. We'll be talking with you again next weekend.